Hey everybody, my name is Eric and this is Blessed and Bookmarked, a brand new channel here on YouTube where every week we're going to be going over a different type of book. We're going to be talking about and discussing and discovering hopefully your next favorite read. I love reading. It's one of my passions. I read all the time. And last year I read so many books that I was like desiring to want to share some of the stuff that I was reading about. So I said, hey, how come I don't start a channel? And maybe through me, you might find your next favorite book. Who knows? So if you're interested in expanding your relationship or your knowledge with God, or just looking for your next favorite discovery for what you're going to read, this is the channel for you. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you turn on that notification bell. Every week I'll be posting different genres of books, so whether it's fiction, non-fiction, Christian living, theology, biographies, Bible history, whatever it is, we're going to be talking about it. So make sure that you subscribe. So thank you for watching. I'm really excited about this. So let's get started. So you may have heard about the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? But have you ever heard of the Gospel according to Satan? So I know what you're thinking. With a title like that, should I even be reading a book like this? And no, trust me, it's not some like ancient scroll that they found that claims to have a different revelation than the Gospels in the Bible. It is a book that I picked up at the end of last year and I read through it and I thought it was fascinating. It's called The Gospel According to Satan, 8 Lies About God That We Believe to Be True by Jared C. Wilson. It is a fantastic read and we're going to be going over it in this video. So if you are interested in buying the book, I will link it below in the description. And the premise of the book is that not every lie sounds like a lie. The devil, being a master deceiver, has managed to twist and manipulate his lies and present them in such a way that many people believe things about God that just aren't true. And so this book goes over 8 different lies that many people believe to be true about God. And so it's called The Gospel According to Satan because it's really not a gospel at all. So here are the lies. Number 1. God just wants you to be happy. Number 2, you only live once. Number 3, you need to live your truth. Number 4, your feelings are your reality. Number 5, your life is what you make it. Number 6, let go and let God. And number 7, God helps those who help themselves. So let's break down the good, the bad, and the blessings. So let's start with the good. I think this is an extremely interesting book. I think it's very interesting in the way that it frames the ideas or some of the concepts that it's tackling throughout its pages about ideas that are relevant today to Christians and non-Christians alike. So the book is written in tight, focused, small chapters that are kind of independent of one another. So you don't really have to start at chapter 2 or chapter 4. You can kind of jump around if you want and tackle whichever one you feel is most interesting. However, there is a common thread running throughout all the chapters and all the lies presented, and it runs back to the deception that takes place in Genesis chapter 3 with Adam and Eve and the serpent. The language of this book is super accessible. It's not like some high theological kind of 18 syllable word that you have to look up in order to be able to understand it. As an English teacher, I'm able to read books like that. However, this is not one of those, right? This is a really good book to read at whatever level. So if you're just starting off on your walk, or you've been, serving God for years, this is the kind of book that relates to anybody. So although it is taking on these kind of big, important themes, it doesn't seem to kind of have this holier than thou attitude or really like kind of academic language. It has anecdotes from the author's life that run throughout the chapters that make the stories kind of more accessible or relevant to everyday life. Some of those are a little bit more interesting than others, but none of them are ever really boring. So I think all in all, that's good that way. One thing that's always going to be a marker for me when I'm reading a book to determine whether it's a good book or not is that it's not just the ramblings or the opinions of a person. Everything that the author talks about in this book is grounded in scripture with some specific verse or some specific story that it's talking about. So I really appreciate the fact that it's not just somebody kind of soapboxing and giving their opinion, but it's grounded in the Bible. And I think that by the end of the book, it really accomplishes what it set out to do. It tackles these ideas that people have that might be confusing people, that might be kind of sneaking in without anybody noticing, and it addresses what makes it sound like it's true, but why it's actually false. So let's be clear, this isn't the Bible and we shouldn't take it as so. So there are going to be things in here that you are welcome to disagree with or maybe have a different opinion about. But I do think that it has some value in being able to shed light on things that maybe we haven't realized that might be infiltrating our ideologies or the way that we think. So now the bad. And to be honest, I actually don't have a lot to complain about with this book. I thought that a lot of the chapters were interesting. I thought that for the most part, the writer's writing style and his points were valid. There are some chapters that are more interesting than others, but like I said earlier, none of them are super boring. This is one of those books that maybe you could just knock out in a day or two if you wanted to. The last two chapters do deal with some pretty heavy theological concepts like justification and salvation. If it's your first time tackling these subjects, it might feel a little off-putting and you might have to slow down just a little bit, but it's nothing that's so over your head that you'll be completely lost. Also, the book does present alternative views to some of its points, particularly in chapter 7, so I do appreciate the fact that it doesn't come off like if it has everything figured out already. And now the last part, the blessing. In this part of the video, I'll try to come up with a few quotes from the book that I was reading and present them to you guys, things that maybe I found were inspiring, thought-provoking, or powerful, and discuss them a little bit. So as I go over these, I would love it if you guys wrote down in the comments which one of the quotes that I gave you thought was most important or most significant or most interesting, or if you just had any questions about them, just feel free to write it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. So here's the first quote that I pulled out from the book that I really thought was interesting. The more we have, the more secure we are, but the more spiritually vulnerable we become. I really love this quote and I feel like it's super relevant. We live in a world and a society that is so materialistic, that everything is about getting everything that you get, securing the bag, money over everything, right? And I just feel like that mentality is so self-destructive, because although it's not a bad thing to have money or to live comfortable lives or to achieve success, I'm not saying any of that stuff. But what I am saying, and what the book seems to be saying as well, is that it leaves us open to new vulnerabilities that maybe we didn't have before, right? So if I feel like I have everything in my life secure, that I have everything I need in terms of finances, in terms of, you know, commodities, in terms of material things, then maybe I feel a little less dependent on my need to rely on God for certain things. I start feeling more self-sufficient. I start feeling more independent, and I kind of forget about God and push him to the side. So no, it's not a bad thing to be successful. It's not a bad thing to be rich, to have money and all that stuff, as long as at the end of the day, you know that you can't rely on that stuff because it could be gone like that. The second quote that I really liked was this one. The gospel is not opposed to effort, but it is opposed to earning. This quote is great because it packs so much in so few words. And basically it's saying that the gospel is not against effort, right? When we come to Christ, we accept his sacrifice and we pick up our cross and follow him. But that picking of that cross, that following him, that isn't the thing that saves you. Your works can never replace his works on the cross, right? And so when we follow Christ, we want the fruit of the Spirit to bloom in our lives. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and gentleness, right? But the fruit of the Spirit isn't what saves me. The fruit of the Spirit is evidence that I've been saved. And so if I think that I can earn my salvation, then those things threaten to take the place of what Christ did, and that's not possible, right? So the gospel isn't against our efforts, as long as we don't trust in those efforts as a way of earning our salvation. And finally, the last quote, we do not believe that God is the means to an end. He is the end. It's very easy for us to slip into this mentality that God is like some genie that's up in heaven. I only have to talk to him or call on him when I need something, right? My family's falling apart. Somebody's sick. Somebody, lost their job. Somebody's in trouble. Let me pray then, right? But the problem is that then we're only going to God when we need something. What about a relationship with God? What about looking for him instead of just looking for the things that he offers? And so I thought that it was a powerful quote too, because it helps us to check our selfish desires. So all in all, I thought this was a great read. I thought it tackled some pretty interesting questions in a really new, creative, and accessible way. Like any book, I may not agree with every assertion that the author makes or take it to the same logical conclusion. But all in all, I think that this book is a very edifying book. It could serve as the basis for a Bible study or a sermon series, or just for your own personal study. I give this book 4 out of 5 bookmarks. So there you have it. Would you be interested in reading a book like this? If you are, leave a comment in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found something interesting or made you curious about something by watching this video. Once again, if you're interested in buying the book, I'll leave a link in the description. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you guys. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time.